He thought he had finally found love. At 56, after years of loneliness and failed relationships, she appeared his life like a dream, a vibrant, supportive 24-year-old who called him her hero. She held his hand when he was sick, laughed at his old jokes, and told him she wanted forever. But what he didn't know was that forever meant something very different to her. Behind every smile was a secret. Behind every kiss was a trap. And after 2 years of carefully earning his trust, she and her hacker gang would take everything: his money, his identity, his dignity, until nothing was left. This wasn't just a romance. It was a slow, calculated heist. And in the end, it left a man broken and dead. Before we begin, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comment below. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do it now. Because it's your support that keeps us bringing chilling, educational stories of cybercrime and betrayal. Now, sit back. Let's begin the story in full. His name was Thomas Reed, a soft-spoken accountant from Ohio. At 56, Thomas had settled into a life of quiet routines: work, church on Sundays, an occasional dinner with colleagues, and evenings spent reading in his modest home. His 2 adult children lived in different states, busy with their own families. And while Thomas wasn't miserable, he often admitted to friends that life felt empty. Loneliness is one of the most underestimated vulnerabilities in the digital age. It doesn't just drive people to seek companionship. It makes them susceptible to manipulation, and Thomas was no exception. In the spring of 2021, Thomas joined a Facebook group for widowed and divorced individuals. He wasn't looking for much, maybe a few conversations, maybe a friend. That's when he first noticed Emily. She was young, bright, and seemed genuinely interested in his life. Unlike the shallow, small talk he often encountered online, Emily asked about his favorite books, his late parents, and even his dreams for retirement. She made him feel seen. Soon, their conversations moved from public posts to private messages. Within weeks, they were texting every night. By summer, Thomas believed he had found love again. Emily claimed to be 24, a nursing student living 2 states away. She sent him cheerful selfies, always smiling, often with a stethoscope around her neck. Her messages were filled with affection. "You're the only one who understands me, Thomas." Or, "You make me feel safe." For Thomas, who had struggled with self-worth after his divorce, this was intoxicating. Emily admired his gray hair, his stability, his wisdom. She told him she hated immature men her age and dreamed of marrying someone dependable, someone like him. Over the next 2 years, Emily became part of his daily life. She remembered birthdays, encouraged him during work stress, and even reminded him to take his medication when he fell ill. She was, in his eyes, the perfect partner. But while Thomas saw love, Emily saw opportunity. Behind Emily's sweet messages was a hacker collective operating from Eastern Europe. Emily was not a nursing student. She was the bait, a skilled social engineer tasked with identifying lonely, financially stable targets. Her role was simple: earn their trust, then slowly gather personal details. For 2 years, Emily encouraged Thomas to share more and more. She asked about his job, his favorite restaurants, his childhood street. She even convinced him to send copies of old photos and letters. At first, these requests seemed harmless, little tokens of intimacy. But in the world of cybercrime, they were gold. The hackers collected everything: passwords hidden in his memories, security question answers tucked into casual conversations, and personal documents disguised as love mementos. Each fragment was added to a growing digital profile of Thomas Reed, a profile more detailed than Thomas himself could imagine, and he gave it all away willingly. By late 2022, small cracks began to show. Thomas's bank notified him of unusual login attempts from out of state. His email occasionally locked him out. At work, he received strange calls about credit applications he never made. When Thomas mentioned these worries, Emily reassured him, "People hack everything these days. Don't stress, baby. I'll help you figure it out." Her comfort calmed him, and once again he chose to believe in her. But doubts lingered. Thomas's daughter, Megan, noticed the age gap when she visited and saw Emily's photos on his phone. "Dad, are you sure this is real? She looks like she's half my age." Thomas grew defensive. "You don't understand. She cares about me. She's not like other people." It's a common theme in romance scams. Once trust is deeply established, victims will defend their perpetrators, even against loved ones. And that denial often delays the truth until it's far too late. It happened in March 2023. Thomas woke one morning to find his checking account drained, his savings gone. Several credit cards have been maxed out overnight, with charges originating in different countries. Frantic, Thomas tried calling Emily. Her number went straight to voicemail. He checked her social media. Her profile had vanished. Panic set in as he realized that not only were his finances destroyed, but his identity had been stolen as well. The hackers had filed for loans, rerouted his mail, and even attempted to sell his home using forged documents. Everything Thomas worked for over decades was ripped away in a matter of hours. And worst of all, he knew the person he trusted most had betrayed him. When the police arrived, Thomas struggled to explain. How do you tell detectives that a woman you loved, a woman you planned to marry, never existed? Investigators suspected romance fraud immediately, but the scale of the theft shocked even them. The hackers hadn't just taken money. They had dismantled Thomas's entire life. His reputation as an accountant was ruined, his credit destroyed, and his retirement dreams shattered. But the deepest wound wasn't financial. It was emotional. Thomas couldn't reconcile the image of Emily, the kind, supportive partner he thought he knew, with the reality of a criminal who had never cared for him at all. And that psychological devastation would prove fatal. By summer, Thomas's world had collapsed. His home was under foreclosure, his health deteriorating from stress, and his relationship with his children strained. Friends described him as a ghost of himself, quiet, withdrawn, and carrying an unbearable weight of shame. But what happened next was even more tragic. Before I continue, let me pause here. I want to hear from you. What do you think about Emily's plan so far? Could you spot the red flags? Or would you have fallen for the same tricks? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because we are about to uncover the final, heartbreaking chapter of Thomas Reed's life, and the chilling lessons his case left behind for all of us. After the hackers struck, Thomas tried to hold on. He filed police reports, contacted his bank, and even reached out to federal investigators. But the process was slow, bureaucratic, and, most of all, humiliating. At his core, Thomas wasn't just a victim of financial fraud. He was a victim of emotional exploitation. The people around him couldn't fully understand betrayal. To them, it was just money. To Thomas, it was love, trust, and identity, all torn apart. He confided in his pastor once, whispering through tears, "I thought she loved me. I thought I wasn't alone anymore." The pastor placed a hand on his shoulder, but had no words that could mend a shattered spirit. By July 2023, Thomas had stopped answering calls from his daughter. He skipped work meetings, ignored friends, and barely left his house. His body grew frail, his eyes hollow. And then, one morning, he simply didn't wake up. Some say it was a stroke brought on by stress. Others whispered about despair and a quiet overdose of medication. However it happened, the truth was this: Thomas Reed died not just from fraud, but from heartbreak. When Thomas's death reached investigators, they felt the weight of urgency. Cases like his weren't rare, but they were rarely this devastating. Detectives traced Emily's digital footprint, only to find a trail of burner accounts, VPNs, and overseas IP addresses. But here's where things took a turn. Among the fake documents, investigators found something chilling: a shared server used by the hacker group. And inside that server were files containing profiles of dozens of victims, each with personal details, photos, and financial accounts neatly cataloged like prey. Thomas wasn't their only target. He was one of many. This revelation shifted the case from a local fraud to an international cybercrime investigation. The FBI Cyber Division was called in, and through cooperation with European agencies, they began to identify the group behind the scam. The hackers called themselves the Velvet Web, a name that sounded almost poetic, but in reality was built on destruction. Their specialty wasn't brute force hacking or malware. It was human manipulation. They recruited young women, trained them in romance scamming, and paired them with skilled identity thieves. The formula was simple. The woman establishes trust. The victim shares personal data. The hackers build dossiers. When the time is right, they strike. Emily, if that was even her real name, was one of their most effective operators. Investigators traced her communications back to a small apartment in Bucharest, Romania, where she had allegedly lured at least 6 men before Thomas. But bringing her to justice was complicated. Extradition laws, lack of direct evidence, and the sheer anonymity of the internet meant that while authorities knew who she was, they couldn't lay their hands on her. Thomas's story left scars on more than just his bank account. His daughter Megan spoke to the press months later, tears streaking her face. "My father wasn't stupid. He was lonely, and they took advantage of that. They stole more than money. They stole his will to live." Neighbors whisper about the tragedy for months, shaking their heads at how a man so cautious with numbers could be so blind in love. Some blamed him, others pitted him, but all agreed the story was haunting. Psychologists later pointed out that romance scams are particularly devastating because they attack 2 fundamental human needs: love and security. Victims aren't just robbed financially. They're robbed emotionally, spiritually, and socially. Many, like Thomas, don't recover. Thomas Reed's story may have ended in heartbreak, but his case serves as a powerful reminder. Hackers don't always use code. They use psychology. They exploit emotions. They target the vulnerable moments in our lives. There are warning signs we can all learn from. Too good to be true. When someone much younger shows intense interest, be cautious. Information mining. Be wary of anyone asking for childhood details, family names, or old documents. Isolation tactics. If they discourage you from telling family or friends, it's a red flag. Financial evasiveness. If they avoid video calls, real visits, or transparency about their own life, watch out. Most importantly, trust but verify. Love can be real, but so can deception. As of 2024, the Velvet Web remains active. Law enforcement agencies continue to chase their shadow, but with new technology, new recruits, and an endless supply of victims, shutting them down has proven nearly impossible. And while Emily may have vanished into the digital fog, her impact lingers in every person she deceived. For Thomas Reed, her betrayal was a final chapter. For us, it is a warning, because in the age of the internet, cybercrime isn't always about firewalls and passwords. Sometimes it begins with a smile, a conversation, and the illusion of love. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. Thomas Reed's tragedy reminds us that cybercrime isn't distant, it's personal. It hides in our messages, our hearts, and our blind spots. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think you would have spotted Emily's lies? Or could you, too, have been deceived by her charm? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. And before you go, please don't forget, like this video, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to Bite Crimes. It's your support that keeps us motivated to bring more chilling, educational stories of betrayal, crime, and survival in the digital world. Because as long as hackers hide behind keyboards, we'll be here to expose their crimes. And the next story might just be the one you need to hear.